Freddie Mercury. The name alone ignites memories of stadiums roaring, of fists pounding to "We Will Rock You," of that voice, unearthly, powerful, and raw. He wasn't just a performer. He was a spectacle, a legend, a man who lived like a firework in full bloom. But even legends have a quieter side, a human side. And at the center of Freddie's life, through the glamour, the chaos, the secrecy, was someone the cameras rarely caught. A woman named Mary Austin. She didn't tour the world. She didn't stand in the spotlight, but she knew the man before the myth. And she stayed when the stage lights dimmed. They weren't married. They weren't a traditional love story. But Freddie once said, "All my lovers asked me why they couldn't replace Mary. But it's simply impossible." This wasn't just a relationship. It was a bond that outlasted love. It was trust that endured fame, heartbreak, and death. When Freddie passed away in 1991, he didn't just leave Mary his home. He left her half his estate, his most private wishes, his ashes. She's never told a soul where she scattered them. And now, over 30 years later, Mary Austin is breaking her silence. Not with scandal or bitterness, but with reflection. And in doing so, she's revealing a side of Freddie Mercury that even his biggest fans never truly knew. Because sometimes the loudest love story is the one no one hears. Long before the headlines, before Queen became a global force, before stadiums knew his name, there was Mary. Born in 1951 in Fulham, London, Mary Austin's world was quiet in more ways than one. Both of her parents were deaf. She grew up communicating through gestures, through expression, through feeling. Lip reading and sign language became her first languages. Silence wasn't uncomfortable for her. It was home. She wasn't wealthy. Her father worked with wallpaper. Her mother cleaned houses. Mary learned early how to be observant, how to listen, how to live modestly and move with grace through a world that never handed her anything. That made her different from the world Freddie Mercury would one day step into. But maybe that's exactly why he trusted her. They met in 1969. Mary was working at Biba, a trendy London boutique. Freddie, fresh from art school, was working a stall in Kensington Market just nearby. He was dramatic, expressive, alive. She was reserved, careful, quiet. They were opposites in every way, but something about her steadiness drew him in. At first, Mary wasn't sure what to make of him. He was so confident, she later said, and I had never been confident. But they clicked. Slowly, their lives intertwined, and before long, they were living together in a cramped flat. Long before Queen became a name anyone cared about. She saw him hungry. She saw him broke. She saw him unpolished, unfinished, uncertain. And he saw in her someone who didn't want anything from him, except to be close. Years later, when he was asked who he trusted most in the world, Freddie didn't hesitate. Mary. He dedicated "Love of My Life" to her, not because she was his girlfriend, but because she was the one thing in his world that felt permanent. When he died, he left her not just his possessions, but his final wish. And she kept it. For over 3 decades. No press tour, no memoir, no spotlight, just silence. The same kind she grew up in, the same kind she shared with him. And now, as the world continues to celebrate the showman, Mary is finally giving us a glimpse of the man. London, late 1969. The city was pulsing with art, music, rebellion, a hotbed for dreamers. Amid crowded markets and boutique-lined streets, 2 very different lives intertwined. Freddie, still Farah Bulsara, was a new face to this London dream. He'd arrived from Zanzibar, fleeing revolution, bringing a sketchbook and a head full of idealism. He spent his days selling second-hand clothes in Kensington Market and dreaming of something bigger. Mary Austin was just as different. Born in 1951 into a modest Fulham family, her home had been quiet. Both parents were deaf. She spoke softly, listened deeply, and found comfort in silence. He noticed her first. Something about her quiet presence among the bustle tugged at him. She noticed him, too, his bold flair and unapologetic energy. He walked into her world one day, and her life quietly tilted. Their first flat was tiny, a single room with mismatched furniture and worn wallpaper. They cooked together, paid rent together, talked about everything and nothing. But for Mary, it was no ordinary flat. It was the place where she saw Freddie spark before anyone else did, where she saw the man behind the show. She watched him with others. Rehearsing with Brian, Roger, and John, saw him hesitate sometimes, saw him dream. But he came home to her. Always. He was everything I wasn't, Mary would later say, but I think I brought out something real in him. And in him, she found someone worth the wait. It took me nearly 3 years, she admitted. But once I fell for him, I fell for him all the way. It wasn't instant love. It was slow. It was steady. It was hard-earned. And it laid the foundation for everything that followed. Queen's first record deal came in 1972, and the world began to shift to louder gigs, busier schedules, bigger dreams. Yet Mary remained beside Freddie, part of everything unfolding, even if she rarely stood in the spotlight. By 1973, their relationship had matured. Their flat on Holland Road was a step up. More space, more stability, but still home. And on that Christmas, Freddie decided to make it unforgettable. He handed Mary a large, decorative box. She unwrapped it, and then another, and another. Like Russian nesting dolls, each box revealed a deeper layer. And under it all, hidden inside the littlest box, was a jade ring. Pale green, simple, perfect. Mary asked, softly, "Which hand should I wear it on?" Freddie answered, with that magnificent blend of warmth and flair, "The left." Then came a question, "Will you marry me?" She said yes, in wonder, in love and awe. The proposal became legend, whispered among friends, later immortalized in the song, "Love of My Life," a tribute to the woman who had loved him quietly from the beginning. As Queen rose, sheer heart attack, a night at the opera, sold out arenas. The world saw a power couple of sorts. On stage, Freddie was fireworks. Off stage, they had that ring, that home, that sense of partnership. But while the world applauded, something else began to pull them apart. Because with every lyric written, every performance given, Freddie was growing louder, but their moments together were growing quieter. Their love was real, raw, deep. But the kind of love that changes lives sometimes cannot survive everything. Not fame, not identity, not time. And as Queen's song soared, Freddie's truth waited in the wings. By the mid-1970s, Queen was more than a band. It was a global force. Their tours, costumes, and songs were electricity incarnate. Freddie, fearless on stage, was becoming all things to all people. It's something within him was shifting, a quiet realization he knew couldn't stay hidden. Mary felt it first. He was still there, but slipping away. Rehearsals ran late. Dinners were missed. Intimate moments were replaced with awkward silences. She tried to ignore it, blaming the fame, the success, the noise. But deep down, she knew something had changed between them. In 1976, sitting in that Holland Road flat that had once been their haven, Freddie did what he had been both afraid and longing to do. He told Mary the truth. He wasn't bisexual. He was gay. There was no fanfare, no drama, no big reveal, just quiet clarity. It wasn't rejection. It was acceptance. Him accepting himself and her accepting his truth. The moment broke something and saved something. The proposal dissolved, but their connection remained. Changed, yes, but not gone. He bought her a flat nearby through his publishing company. He invited her to shows, to backstage life, to everything that still mattered, but from a different seat now. Older, different, but still together. Even as doors closed and love evolved, Freddie never stopped loving Mary. She remained his confidant, the person he called first. In 1985, he said it plainly, "The only friend I have is Mary. Nobody else means as much." With Freddie's truth out in the open, the word fiancé became obsolete, but its echo remained. Their shared history wasn't erased overnight, nor was its meaning. Mary moved into a flat Freddie provided, keeping her close even as their roles changed. She never left his side, not publicly, not privately. She smiled, she supported, she adapted to a version of love neither had expected but both needed. Away from the stage lights, the behind-the-scenes moments spoke volumes. There are photographs of Mary at concerts, by his side backstage in silent solidarity. Their worlds had changed, but their link remained unbroken. Freddie went on to love others, most notably Jim Hutton. Mary built a life of her own too, having 2 sons, Richard and Jamie, with artist Pierce Cameron. Freddie remained a fixture in their lives, even becoming godfather to Richard, his blood tie through friendship. Though Mary and Pierce never married, and her marriage to businessman Nick Halford ended in divorce, she remained tethered to Freddie and his legacy. She worked with his estate, contributed quietly to decisions, protected his memory, always doing so with discretion and care. And even as Freddie's fame grew, so did Mary's role. not as a celebrity partner, but as the quiet architect of his personal life. She showed up when no one else did. She took care. She stayed. The engagement may have ended, but their story didn't. It simply became something deeper, a friendship built on trust, history, vulnerability, and acceptance, a partnership no label could qualify. Freddie Mercury's public brilliance at the height of Queen's power masked a profound private suffering. In 1987, he was diagnosed with AIDS, a disease still misunderstood, stigmatized, and whispered about behind closed doors. For all the world, he remained electrifying. For Mary, he was her partner in pain. Old Faithful was his pet name for her, and she embodied every letter. Mary became more than a friend. She became his anchor in the storm. When Freddie awoke in the middle of the night, struggling for breath, it was Mary's soft touch that grounded him. When tremors shook his frame, it was Mary's steady hand that steadied him. When the disease stole his appetite, she coaxed nutrients into his plate, one spoon at a time. Her presence created a sanctuary within his storm. As public rumors swirled, she kept him safe. She refused interviews, avoided cameras, and made his hospital rooms into places of calm, not scrutiny. She brought soft music to ease the pain. She read novels aloud because silence sometimes grew too loud. She massaged his temples after the IVs, whispered memories of their early days in quiet tenderness. Each morning, Mary arrived before dawn broke, stepping into his room with ritualistic care. At night, she stayed with him, ensuring he slept securely, and whispered reminders of his worth hidden in the world beyond the illness. They existed in a space far removed from the stage, a place of fragile humanity. And when Freddie took his final breath on November 24th, 1991, Mary was tucked close, devoted, and loving to the end. It wasn't a public spectacle. It was an act of profound intimacy, a silent goodbye from one soul to another, witnessed by someone who loved him beyond the legend. Freddie didn't just leave behind a musical legacy. He left Mary his most personal wishes, and trusted her with a future no stage could hold. He entrusted her with Garden Lodge, his 28-room Georgian estate, carefully curated with design and art that mirrored their journey together. He left her handwritten lyric sheets, studio memorabilia, and personal items not for fame or profit, but because they were part of their story. But the greatest trust came with just 2 words: his ashes. When Freddie requested no public gravestone, no memorial crowd, he asked only for Mary to lay him to rest in peace and with dignity. She honored him. For 2 years, she tenderly held his ashes, bearing the silent weight of farewell. Then, one clear morning, she carried them to a place of solace. No photographs, no tour groups, just a hush and a promise kept. Over 30 years later, the secret remains hers alone. In a world that seeks headlines, she chose silence. Mary still lives in Garden Lodge. Each room reflects memories only they shared. Freddie's artful crest on a sheet of paper, his piano bench turned cushion, a pair of sequin pants folded in shadow. She didn't stage a museum. She preserved a life. In 2023, she released 1,500 pieces of his past into the world, including costumes, instruments, and notes, telling BBC, "It's time to close that chapter." But the narrative of Mary's loyalty remains intact, soundless yet profound. The legacy she curates isn't built on profit, though she inherited over $60 million thanks to Bohemian Rhapsody and ongoing royalties. It's built on devotion, a devotion that outlasted fame, illness, and death. Because Mary wasn't there for the spotlight. She was there for the man. When the sequins dimmed and the crowds quieted, Freddie Mercury wasn't a rock god. He was a shy, introverted, deeply thoughtful man. Born Farag Bulsara in Zanzibar in 1946, Freddie's early years were shaped by exile and identity. His family fled during the Revolution, landing in England as outsiders with few resources, but with a rich culture and artistic spirit. Young Freddie found solace in 2 unexpected passions: stamp collecting and art. He organized stamps by color, theme, and size. Empty spaces left intentionally in his album when a perfect match didn't exist. This wasn't child's play. It was perfectionism training. A sharp eye for detail that would later shape Queen's music and Freddie's performance aesthetic. He wasn't shy about designing either. At art school, Freddie created the iconic Queen crest himself, a sophisticated coat of arms featuring a phoenix, zodiac signs, and a jewel-studded Q. It wasn't just a band logo. It was an emblem of his vision. And then there were the quirks. Freddie was painfully self-conscious about his overbite, caused by 4 extra teeth pushed into his mouth. Yet he refused corrective dentistry, believing his distinctive smile, and perhaps the extra resonance it gave, was integral to his voice's extraordinary range from F2 to G5. Even behind the keys of rock's grand piano, he was hesitant. Though he composed epics like Bohemian Rhapsody and Somebody to Love at Home, he often hid behind guest keyboardists during live shows, choosing stage presence over perfection, trusting others to play while he conquered. Then there was the infamous studio session with Michael Jackson in 1983. 2 icons, 1 chaotic collaboration, and a llama. Freddie once phoned his manager in exasperation, telling him to take the llama home. "I can't record with that thing here." That llama, unwanted, unruly, became a symbol. Even the biggest legends crave normalcy. Despite his fame, Freddie loved simple pleasures. He invited his mother over to cook for the band. He delighted in family moments far from the flash. His inner circle, friends, family, crew, saw a different Freddie, thoughtful, grounded, and remarkably generous. He was the opposite of the stage persona, gentle, reflective, even humble. Roger Taylor, in a letter to Mercury and Queen, called him shy and modest, a stark contrast to the flamboyant figure the world adored. So when you hear Freddie Mercury's voice, towering and fearless, remember these truths. The boy who treasured stamps, the artist who sketched crests, the man brave enough to embrace his flaws, the friend who whispered for a llama to leave his recording space. He wasn't just a legend. He was a deeply complex soul, hidden beneath layers of music and myth. Freddie Mercury didn't just leave behind a discography. He left behind a world forever changed by his courage to be unfiltered, unashamed, and unforgettable. He died at just 45, but in that short time, he lived louder, loved deeper, and gave more of himself than most ever dare. His final gift wasn't just to music, it was to Mary Austin, the woman who knew the man behind the curtain, the one he called my common-law wife, even after their romance faded, the one he trusted with his ashes, his secrets, and his silence. She never sought the spotlight. She never needed applause. Yet her loyalty became the quiet backbone of Freddie's chaotic life. As the world mourned the flamboyant frontman, Mary kept a promise to never reveal where his ashes rest. More than 3 decades later, that promise remains unbroken. In a world obsessed with exposure, she chose dignity. And that, perhaps, is the truest expression of love. Freddie's legacy lives in Queen's anthems, in the soaring chorus of Somebody to Love, in the unshakable defiance of We Are the Champions. But it also lives in the quiet corners of Garden Lodge, in the jade ring he gave Mary, in the handwritten lyrics she preserved, in the soft-spoken woman who saw him not as a god, but as Freddie. So when the lights go down and the final note fades, remember this: legends don't live forever because of fame. They live forever because of the people who never stopped loving them. If this story moved you, honor it with a like. Leave a comment if you believe love, real love, never ends, even when the music does. And if you want more untold stories from the lives behind the legends, subscribe, because behind every spotlight, there's a shadow. And inside every icon, there's a human story waiting to be heard.